The night was warm, heavy with the scent of wet pine, when Boone stopped at the edge of the pond. His tongue lolled, chest heaving from the long hike, but he wouldn't drink. The K9's ears pressed flat, his body stiffening as if the water itself whispered a warning only he could hear. Sheriff Danner tugged at the leash, confused. Boone never turned down water, not after hours in the woods. But the dog's eyes stayed fixed on the black surface, unblinking, unyielding. In the silence, a ripple spread across the pond, though no wind touched it. The pond lay hidden deep in the pines, a still, forgotten pocket of water the town called Raven's Hollow. Locals used to fish here until the stories began. Kids whispering about shadows, about things that pulled at their lines with more force than a trout ever could. Nobody came anymore, except tonight. Sheriff Caleb Danner crouched beside Boone, brushing the K9's ear. "Easy, boy. What's got you spooked?" Boone's body was a statue, every muscle coiled. His nose twitched, pulling in the air. A low growl rumbled through his throat. Caleb straightened, peering at the water. The moonlight barely kissed the surface, but he swore he saw something move beneath it. Not a fish, not the usual flicker. Something heavier, slower. Behind him, Deputy Claire Hanlon snapped a twig under her boot. "Sheriff," her voice was cautious, almost hushed. "You see it?" Caleb asked, eyes still locked on the water. Claire shook her head. "Just dark water." "What's Boone doing?" "Refusing." Caleb tugged gently on the leash. Boone didn't budge. His hackles stood high, tail stiff as a rod. Claire frowned. "Dogs don't refuse water. That's what I'm thinking." The silence around them grew louder, as though the forest itself held its breath. The faint ripple widened, then stilled. Caleb finally stepped back, called a dive team. The headlights cut through the dark an hour later, bouncing off the pines. 2 county trucks rolled up on the dirt path, their tires grinding over roots and rocks. The divers spilled out, 3 of them in heavy gear, faces drawn with the fatigue of a late-night call. "You serious about this?" One asked, hauling his tank from the truck bed. His name was Reese, a man built like a bull with a habit of questioning every order. Caleb gave him a look. "Boone won't go near it." Reese barked a dry laugh. "So we're here because your dog doesn't want to drink?" Claire bristled. "He's not just a dog. He's trained." Reese met her eyes, then Caleb's. "Fine, but if I come up with nothing but mud and algae, you owe me a beer." The divers suited up, air hissing from their valves. Boone whined low, pacing along the bank, his eyes never leaving the pond. Caleb's stomach nodded. Boone had served in the military before joining the department. He'd sniffed out explosives, tracked fugitives, even dragged a wounded soldier out of a burning Humvee. If Boone said the water wasn't right, Caleb trusted him more than any man. The first diver slid beneath the surface, light beams slicing through blackness. The water swallowed him instantly. The second followed, leaving Reese on the bank. He muttered curses, fiddling with his mask. Minutes ticked by. Too many. The radios crackled with muffled voices, distorted by the water. Boone's growl rose, deep and insistent. Caleb crouched, whispering, "What do you smell, boy?" But Boone only stared harder, body trembling with tension. Then the first diver shot up, gasping. His mask ripped away. His eyes were wild. "There's something down there." He cut himself off, choking on water. He clawed at the bank, scrambling out. His wet suit was streaked with mud and something else. Something dark. Reese cursed and went in. Caleb grabbed the first diver's shoulders. "What did you see?" The man shook his head, shivering. Not natural. "I touched something. Cloth. Not fish. Not logs. Cloth." His breathing hitched. It grabbed me back. Claire paled. "You mean it moved?" The diver's teeth chattered. Felt like a hand. They pulled something up 2 hours later. The water boiled with bubbles as Reese and the second diver broke the surface, hauling a shape between them. Heavy, dripping. The spotlight from the truck fixed on it, painting the shoreline in harsh white. A body bag. Torn. Swollen. But not one. 2. Tangled together. Bound at the ankles with rusted chain. The air thickened. Claire's hand flew to her mouth. Caleb felt his chest tighten. Boone barked, frantic, lunging toward the bodies. Reese staggered onto the bank, ripping off his mask. His face was pale beneath his stubble. That's not all. There's more down there. Caleb's stomach sank. More. Dozens. Reese's voice cracked. Maybe hundreds. The night pressed in, colder now. Caleb stared at the black water, the ripples spreading outward as if the pond itself were exhaling a secret it had held for too long. The news broke at dawn. Mass grave discovered in Raven's Hollow Pond. Reporters swarmed the small town, their vans crowding the square. Locals gathered in hushed clusters, trading fear and whispers. Everyone wanted answers. Who were the bodies? How long had they been there? Who put them there? Caleb wanted answers too. But more than that, he wanted quiet. The weight of the discovery clung to him like smoke, seeping into his lungs. He barely slept, barely ate. Boone lay at his feet in the office, restless, ears flicking at every sound. Claire slid a folder across the desk. Missing persons reports. Last 20 years. Caleb opened it. Photos stared back at him. Smiling faces. Faded now, most forgotten. A girl with braces. A man in work boots. A mother clutching her baby. Dozens of them. Claire's voice was low. What if this is all of them? Caleb looked at Boone. The dog shifted, whining. What if it's not? That night, Caleb drove home the back roads, windows down, the humid air clinging to his skin. His headlights swept the fields, catching the sagging barn, the lone mailbox leaning at the edge of the gravel drive. When he pulled up, the porch light was out. Strange. He always left it on. Inside, the house smelled faintly of smoke. He froze in the doorway, hand on his holster. Boone growled low and steady. Hello. Caleb called. Silence. He moved through the house, each creak of the floor loud as thunder. His living room chair was moved, just slightly, but he knew. Someone had been here. On the kitchen table lay a note. No signature. Just 3 words, written in neat, sharp letters. Leave it buried. Boone barked, snapping his head toward the back door. The lock was broken. Caleb felt the chill slide through him. Whoever had been here wasn't afraid of leaving a message. They were afraid of what he'd find next. If you've been pulled into this mystery, stay with me. There's more beneath Raven's Hollow than anyone wants to believe, and you'll want to see it unravel. The morning fog clung low over Raven's Hollow, turning the pines into silhouettes. The pond was sealed off now, crime scene tape strung between trees like flimsy yellow veins. Deputies patrolled the perimeter, their boots crunching over damp needles. But it didn't matter how much tape they tied, how many floodlights they set up. The town already knew. Word traveled faster than law. Caleb stood at the edge of the water, the note from his kitchen folded in his pocket. His eyes burned from lack of sleep. Boone sat beside him, ears twitching, every muscle tense. Claire approached with a thermos of coffee. You look like hell. Feel like it too, Caleb muttered. She hesitated. You think the note was local? He gave her a tired glance. Door lock wasn't forced. Just broken, like someone who knew how to make it quick. Claire exhaled. Then they were sending a warning. Caleb's jaw tightened. Or a promise. By mid-morning, the divers had retrieved 15 bodies, all chained, all bound in 2s and 3s. The stench was unbearable, carried on the damp breeze, making even seasoned deputies gag. The coroner's team worked quietly, bagging remains, faces grim. Caleb turned to Claire. Any matches from the missing persons files? She shook her head. Too degraded. They'll need DNA. But one thing's certain, this pond's been filling for decades. Boone barked suddenly, jerking against the leash. He strained toward the treeline, hackles raised. Caleb followed his gaze. A figure stood at the edge of the fog, watching. The man didn't move, didn't flinch, just stare back. Caleb's hand went to his holster. But when he blinked, the figure was gone. Claire's eyes widened. You saw him too? Yeah. Caleb's voice was low. Yeah, I did. The town meeting was packed that night. The community hall buzzing with fear and anger. Wooden chairs scraped against the floor, the air heavy with sweat and suspicion. Mayor Trenton banged the gavel. "Quiet down, please. Sheriff Danner will speak." Caleb stepped forward, Boone at his side. He looked at the faces before him. Neighbors he'd known since childhood, farmers, shopkeepers, churchgoers. And now all of them were staring back like he held the answer to a nightmare. "We've recovered bodies from Raven's Hollow," Caleb said. "We don't know how many yet. It's a crime scene now and an active investigation. I'm asking for patience." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. A man in the back, Harold Pike, who ran the lumber mill, stood up, face red. "Patience? My nephew went missing in '09. Are you telling me he's been rotting in that pond all this time while you sat on your ass?" Caleb's voice hardened. "We didn't know." Another voice cut in, a woman's, sharp and cold. "Or maybe you did, and you just didn't say anything." The room erupted. Shouts, accusations. Claire tried to calm them, but it was useless. Then the mayor leaned into the mic. "We should also consider the possibility this is bigger than our county. Organized. A ring. Or a cover-up," someone yelled. Caleb felt the heat of eyes on him. Distrust. Boone growled softly, sensing his unease. Finally, he snapped, "You think I'd hide this? You think I want this in my town? Every one of those bodies is a person. Someone's child. Someone's parent. And I'm going to find who did it. But I can't do it with you all clawing at my back." The room fell quiet, but not trusting. Just silent. And in that silence, Caleb knew. The town didn't believe him. Later that night, Caleb parked outside the old records office. Its brick facade cracked and weathered. The street was deserted. Only the flicker of a single lamp buzzing overhead. Claire joined him, arms crossed against the chill. "Why here?" she asked. "Town archives. Land deeds, water rights. I want to know who owned that pond before it became public." Inside, the building smelled of dust and old paper. Rows of shelves leaned like tired sentries. They dug through file boxes until Claire froze, pulling one out. "Caleb, you need to see this." She laid the document flat under the lamplight. A deed, Raven's Hollow, dated 1962. The owner's name scrawled at the bottom, Elias Danner. Caleb's chest went cold. "My grandfather," he whispered. Claire searched his face. "Did you know?" "No." He stepped back, heart pounding. "He died before I was born. My father never mentioned." The realization struck him. His family's name was tied to that pond. His bloodline stamped across the graveyard in the water. Claire's voice was careful. "If this gets out, people will think your family was involved. They already don't trust me." Caleb rubbed his face, sweat cold on his skin. "This will bury me." That night, sleep refused him. He sat on the porch with a bottle of whiskey, Boone lying at his feet. The cicadas hummed in the dark, a low, relentless drone. He thought of the note again. Leave it buried. Whoever left it knew his family's connection. Knew before he did. Boone's ears pricked suddenly. The dog rose, growling at the tree line. Caleb squinted. A shadow moved between the pines. "Who's there?" he barked, hand on his gun. No answer. He stepped down the porch. Boone at his side, the crunch of gravel loud beneath his boots. The shadow slipped deeper into the trees. Caleb followed, heart hammering. Branches snapped. Footsteps. Then silence. And in that silence, a voice hissed from the dark. "Your family started this, Sheriff. You best be careful where you dig." The words slithered away with the night. Boone barked, but the figure was gone. Caleb stood frozen, the chill of betrayal sinking in. Someone out there knew more than him, and they wanted him off the trail. The next morning, Reese stormed into station, eyes bloodshot. "I'm done," he snapped. "You hear me? I'm not going back in that pond." Caleb frowned. "What happened?" Reese's hand shook as he lit a cigarette. "Something down there, not just bodies. Rooms. Structures. Like a house swallowed by water." Claire blinked. "A house?" "Yeah." Reese's voice cracked. Doors still hanging on hinges. Windows. And inside, he He stopped, swallowing hard. Inside were chains, rows of them, bolted to the floor. The room went dead quiet. Caleb's mind reeled. You're saying it wasn't just a dumping ground. Reese's eyes burned with something between fear and rage. It was a prison. That night, Caleb drove back to the pond alone. No deputies, no press, just him and Boone. The moon cast the water in silver, ripples glinting like knives. He stood at the bank, staring, the weight of generations pressing down on him. If Reese was right, someone had used Raven's Hollow to keep people, to chain them, drown them, bury them. And his grandfather's name was on the deed. Boone whined softly, pressing against his leg. Caleb knelt, burying his fingers in the dog's fur. Tell me the truth, boy, he whispered. Did my blood do this? The dog's eyes glowed in the moonlight. Then Boone turned, snapping his head toward the woods. A branch cracked. Caleb spun, hand on his gun, and from the tree lean, a figure stepped into the open. Someone he knew, someone he trusted. The betrayal cut deeper than any bullet. The figure stepped into the moonlight, and Caleb's breath caught. Claire, she stood at the tree lean, her badge glinting faintly, pistol loose in her hand. Her face was unreadable, too calm for the storm behind his ribs. Boone growled low, teeth bared. Caleb steadied his voice. You followed me. You shouldn't be here alone, she said, stepping closer. Why? Afraid I'll find something you don't want me to? Her silence stretched, taut as a noose. Finally, she holstered the gun, but her eyes didn't soften. Caleb, she said quietly, you need to stop before you rip this town apart. The two stood in the damp grass, pond breathing its rot between them. The cicadas screamed like static. Boone pressed against Caleb's leg, vibrating with unease. You knew about my grandfather, Caleb said. Claire's jaw flexed. I found out yesterday. I didn't tell you because I wanted time to figure out what it meant. And the note? At my house. She shook her head. Not me? Then who the hell was it? The silence answered. Someone else. Watching both of them. Caleb's voice dropped, ragged. Tell me the truth. Did you know what Reese saw down there? Claire's eyes darted toward the water, then back to him. Chains. Yes, I believe him. Caleb stepped closer. Then say out loud. That pond was a prison. Somebody, maybe my blood, kept people down there. Claire flinched. We don't know that. We do, Caleb snapped. And if it was Elias Danner, if it was my family, then this whole town's been living off the silence. Boone barked sharply, cutting the air, his ears pinned back, body stiff. Caleb followed the dog's gaze. Movement on the far side of the pond. 3 men stepped out of the pines. Dark jackets. Work boots. Faces Caleb recognized instantly. Harold Pike, 2 of his mill hands. Each carried a shotgun, casual but heavy. Caleb's pulse spiked. What the hell is this? Harold's voice was low, steady, cleaning up a mess. One your family started. Claire raised her hands. Harold, don't. You don't get it, Harold said, eyes locked on Caleb. That pond's fed my mill for decades. That water ran our saws, cooled our blades. We kept quiet about the stories because it was easier, safer. But now you've dragged it all out. And if people start digging, they'll find more than you want them to. Caleb's throat went dry. You knew. Harold's expression didn't change. We all knew. Your grandfather struck a bargain. The town got work. The mill got water. And in return, the hollow stayed full. Nobody asked questions. Claire's face blanched. You're saying the town covered this up? Harold nodded once. Not everyone, but enough. The revelation punched through Caleb. His grandfather hadn't acted alone. The town, the men who built it, had held the chain. His bloodline was stained, yes, but the rot ran deeper, coiled through every family that chose silence. Boone barked again, pulling at the leash, body aimed at Harold. Harold cocked his shotgun. Time to let sleeping water lie, Sheriff. You can't dig up ghosts without drowning in them. The standoff shattered with a single shot, thunder cracking across the pond. But it wasn't Harold who fired. It was Claire. Her pistol smoked as one of Harold's men dropped, gun clattering into the mud. Boone lunged, dragging Caleb sideways as buckshot ripped through the air. The night exploded in chaos. Yells, gunfire, the acrid stink of smoke and cordite. Caleb rolled, drew his weapon, fired. A blast caught Harold in the shoulder, spinning him back. Boone tore into the second mill hand, teeth sinking deep. When the gunfire stilled, the only sound was Harold's ragged breathing, his blood soaking the grass. The other two lay silent. Boone's muzzle dripped red. Caleb staggered to his feet, chest heaving. He looked at Claire, whose hand shook around the pistol. "You chose," he said hoarsely. Her eyes glistened. "I chose you." They dragged Harold into custody. But his words clung like oil in Caleb's chest. We all knew. By dawn, the county was crawling with state investigators, news vans choking the roads. The pond became a carnival of cameras, the divers' discoveries flashing across screens nationwide. Hollow chains. Small town graveyard. The headline screamed. But none of them touched the truth Caleb now carried. His grandfather had owned the pond. His town had used it. And silence had been the currency of survival. Weeks later, the funerals began, one after another. Coffins lowered into fresh soil, names matched to bones by DNA. Families wept, some with relief, some with rage. Caleb attended every one, hat in his hands, Boone at his heel. People shook his hand stiffly, thanked him without warmth. He had dragged the truth into daylight, but daylight didn't heal. In the evenings, he returned to his porch. Whiskey, silence, Boone at his feet. Claire visited sometimes, sitting on the steps, her presence quiet but steady. One night, she broke the silence. "Do you think it ends here?" Caleb stared into the dark. The cicadas hummed again, endless. "No, it never ends. Ghosts don't drown. They wait." She touched his arm. "But you face them. That's more than anyone else did." Boone stirred, resting his head on Caleb's knee. The weight was warm. Steady. Caleb exhaled, the ache deep but still. He couldn't undo the blood in his name, couldn't cleanse the water the hollow, but he could carry it. He could bear witness. And in that quiet, beneath the hum of the night, that was enough.